What's going on, Lions fans? Welcome to the Pride of Detroit YouTube channel. Once again, I am Miko, joined here again with Morgan Cannon. Morgan, we're back once again. Lions pick up another must-have win on being able to defend home, beating the Carolina Panthers in a pretty much of a blowout, right? 42-24. A lot of impressive things coming from the Lions in another really impressive home win.
Yeah, this one, like you said, Miko, this one wasn't close from the jump. This was pretty much a rout the whole way through, which is what, it's cliche, but that's what good teams are supposed to do to, young, inexperienced teams, right?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if we're being for real, like this isn't something that the Lions have a really good history of doing. I think they actually have a history of doing the opposite, where they allow young quarterbacks to come in and they flourish and they start to kind of find their groove. That's not the case. That was not the case this past Sunday with Bryce Young. They hammered the kid all game long, and it was a tough outing for him.
Yeah, you could tell he was sped up. He's been sped up this whole season in terms of his internal clock, right? Like he's rushing. He's getting hit a lot. That offensive line's having a difficult time with all these defensive fronts in the NFL. Definitely the Lions. Hutch gave them problems. Aleem gave them problems. Everyone kind of gave them problems. So, not faulting Bryce Young. I think he can still be a good quarterback in this league, despite being a smaller guy and all that stuff. But yeah, rough outing for the kid against a Lions defense that's getting really aggressive and starting to feel themselves a little bit.
Yeah, and I think even in some of the plays that we're going to highlight today, like again, I don't think it's necessarily like him making bad decisions per se. It's just rookie mistakes. But before we get to some of those plays, let's once again highlight this offense because one player that seems to just be on a roll, especially since they came back from injury, is David Montgomery. And I thought we were like overly impressed last year with just the production that Jamal Williams was having. What David Montgomery has done through 5 weeks, it seems almost like sacrilegious to say, but it's like I can't think of a time where I've seen a running back be this consistently good week in and week out.
Yeah, not since the days of this gentleman sitting right here behind me, right? Like where you just
Exactly.
the Lions play on Sunday, and you're like, they're going to run the ball today, which
Yeah.
is it's a nice feeling to have because the Lions have already shown us they can win games in a multitude of ways this year, which is cool. And we've only been through 5 games, but yeah, no disrespect to Jamal, loved having him in Detroit. This is the reason so many people touted David Montgomery as a bit of an upgrade over Jamal because of this first play that we're going to highlight here, where he takes like what probably could have been a good gain, to the crib for a house call. So
Yeah. So let's get right into it. I'm gonna sit here, I'm gonna run it and we'll kind of break it down as the play's kind of developing. But I mean, again, something that David Montgomery does really well, I think, is pressing against the line and then waiting until that just like the right moment to being able to bounce this outside and to, like you said, turn this into something that would have been a good gain and turning it into a house call.
yeah, man, this is a good like his patience and willingness to press a hole, like you said, Miko, is why he creates cutback lanes, right? So he gets up into the thick of things here. The Lions, Jonah Jackson, Taylor Decker, they all do a good job of resetting the line of scrimmage. So he has room to do that. He presses the hole. He has a couple jump cuts here, which we'll see from this view. So you'll see 2 jump cuts. Graham comes around and gets a good block on 57. JMO throws a guy to the ground and see ya. Also, we talked about it before, but look at JMO. He's so fast. It's nice to see.
I mean, yeah, JMO being so fast. I think another player I want to highlight here is Darren Daniels, the playing fullback for the Lions with Jason Kabenda out. Again, not like an overwhelming, like emphatic block, but just being effective in his technique and knowing that, listen, I just need to take my assignment and at least turn him outside so that David has a good cutback lane. And again, like every last one of those blocks just felt so important for this play to develop into what it did.
Yeah, he's been nice. Daryl Daniels this is a good block on 50, like you said, Miko, gets him turned out and helps create that hole for Montgomery. And I wrote this in my film study. I think the reason I love offensive line play and the running game in general is because it's truly all 11 guys like working in cohesion. If something, it has to go right for a play like this to hit. Like no one misses an assignment. Marvin gets a good block on the edge. 29's way out of position. And then Montgomery erases the angle. This is beautiful. This is why we talked about when Montgomery was signed and Jamal Williams went to New Orleans, we were like, on paper, this is what Ben Johnson and the coaching staff were talking about when they were pleased with the way the running game came into form at the end of the year. But this is what they were talking about when some of these 7-8 yard gains should have been turned into more. This is what we're seeing.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, again, this is taking what your offensive line gave you, right? Not wasting the effort that your wide receivers are putting out there and doing more, right? I mean, again, like you said, this could have been an 8, 9, even 10-yard gain. We'd be like, yo, that's a really good run. But again, everyone's on their assignment, and then David Montgomery uses his own God-given ability to make this, a special play. And that's like I said, like I think that's the thing that separates him from a lot of running backs that we've had in recent years. I mean, outside of maybe Reggie Bush, but Reggie was special in a different way. Like it wasn't stuff like this either. And it wasn't on a week in, week out basis. I think David is, as he's gotten healthy and as he's starting to get into a rhythm, he's just getting better and better each and every week.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Montgomery is a battering ram. We've talked about the punishment that he deals out on a down to down basis as a running back, but then to be able to have this skill set too, and we're not confusing him with being as fast as JMO or Jameer, but he's fast enough, right, to take an 8-yard gain, like you said, to turn it into whatever that was. Excuse me, I think it was a 41-yard touchdown run or something like that, if I can't recall. But yeah, having that both of those skills is why he got paid the contract he got paid and why the Lions decided they were ready to upgrade the position.
Well, one position that they don't have to worry about upgrading at least anytime soon is the edge position, right? When you have a guy like Aiden Hutchinson making some of the plays that he's making, there's like you feel really good about this defense having a good, strong foundation for years to come. And in the play that we're about to look at now, I don't know if there's anything necessarily schematic that was going on that made this play turn into what it is, other than the fact of like similar to David Montgomery, Aiden just showing off his God-given ability to take something and turn it into an even bigger play, just because of how talented he is as a football player.
Yeah, this is huge for Hutch because it just shows his maturity as a defender. One thing I like is the Lions are allowing him to stand up. Aaron Glenn is allowing him to stand up from time to time. So here he's in a 2-point stance. Most of the game, they had a tight end over there, whether it was Ian Thomas or Trimble. And yeah, they have a tight end over next to Taylor Moton, their right tackle. The tight end tries to get a chip on Hutch. It doesn't really work. And then he's right there to stick his big old paw out. And he makes a really good play, man. He's got some hands, doesn't he?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, listen, going into the season, I'm not going to pretend as if I thought like Hutch would, continue to rack up interceptions. But if he's able to make headsy plays like this one, where again, just recognizing and feeling this play develop, I mean, listen, he may not have the longest arms, but he's got the surest hands I think I've seen of a defensive end at this point.
Oh, he's got to. If we had to have a competition for best hands from a defensive lineman in the NFL, I think you have to have Hutch there because this is a nice snag. Like that's a little one-handed thing. Going back to him being in the 2-point stance, I wonder if he knew from the beginning because he's saying something. He's standing. I think he's keeping an eye on Young the whole time, and 80 Ian Thomas just doesn't really do a great job of selling this, and he gets a little chip, but then he tries to make himself available for Young. Really, Bryce Young should have just killed this and thrown it at his feet, but he tried to sneak it in there, and he paid the ultimate price, unfortunately, for Young. Fortunately
Yeah,
for the
and
Lions.
so and it kind of goes back to what we were saying at the top, right? Like this is a rookie mistake. We saw Jared Goff, I think, do the opposite of this a couple times, so far this season, where like, hey, they have a screen called, and the minute it's not there, he just kills the play. Like, okay, like this already isn't playing out the way we thought it would. So let me just kill this play before this turns into a bigger disaster. This is something that Bryce Young is going to learn is like, hey, the minute you realize that this defender is still next to your target, kill that.
Yeah, throw that in the dirt, man. Live to fight another down. And I'm sure he wishes he did. This is a good design. If just I don't know. I think Hutch has a beat on this from the jump. Excuse me. And when I watched it back like several times when I was doing my film study, you really don't see his eyes move from Young the whole time. So I wonder if this is something he saw on tape and he knew they were in this particular formation and they got this look, but we'll never know because I doubt he'd admit that out loud. But nice play and good hit by Jonathan Mingo. Good Lord.
Yeah, yeah, that was a scary moment for Hutch because he did not get up, as excited as he normally does after he makes a play.
No,
Um,
man, he got whacked. I mean, this when it happened live, because this happened down near our end zone, and I was like, good God, man, this is a oof.
yeah, man. So, I mean, again, we'll let it run one more time, but I mean, again, this is the growth and the maturity that you're talking about from a young foundational player, right? Again, it's great to be able to get, a sack, a tackle for loss, things of that nature, um, throughout the season as the season's going on, but you also want him to be able to make plays in other areas of the game as well, being able to stop the run or at least again being able to disrupt the passing game when the play is there for him to make it.
Yep, and it just goes to show he's understanding more and more of what defense or what offenses are trying to do to him. His sack, you'll see it on my film study it's on prideofdetroit.com, but he kept hitting Moten with a really like strong bull rush, attacking that outside shoulder, and he set him up when he hit that spin for the sack. Um, yeah, he did it earlier too, got another rush. He's just setting things up well and just he's out there planning and, instead of just reacting. And I think that's what you do a lot of as your rookie year. You're just learning, you're
Yeah.
drinking out of the fire hose. So it's good to see this growth. I think he's still atop the NFL in pressures per PFF, if I'm not mistaken. It's crazy.
Yeah, he is. Like, I think at one point in time, he was tied with some of the other guys, the TJ Watts, the Miles Garrett's of the world. But like, I think at this point, he's separated himself by a pretty good margin after this Carolina game. Um,
Good.
and another guy that's like you're saying, right, is becoming a better student of the game and is definitely understanding what offenses are doing, has to be Jerry Jacobs. And I think Jerry, after a rough start to the season, now has back-to-back games where he has a pick and he seems to be getting into a better rhythm of understanding, his assignments and then understanding and probably doing a better job of retaining the film study that he's doing and understanding like, how to manipulate offenses to bait them into making some of the throws that we're going to see Bryce Young make here.
Yeah, man. I bet you the corner, like Dre Bly, the Lions cornerback coach, I bet he almost did a backflip when Jerry Jacobs made this play because Jerry's always been a really good physical press man corner. That's like since he got here, that's what he's been known for. But this is a play, we'll get into it, Miko, where it looks like to Bryce Young that this is a man look. And it in fact was not. And they baited him into it this whole time. You'll see Bryce's gaze never really moves away from where he's going to throw the ball. And we'll get a better look at it from the top angle. But yep, so he thinks they're in man. Kirby bails, gets into a drop. It looks like Jerry initially is on Ian Thomas, who's running an out, but he bails and is able to pick off. Bryce was trying to get it to Jonathan Mingo on the corner, but yeah, Jerry saw this. He read this like green eggs and ham. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. No, this is beautiful. This is what you want your corners to be able to do. Again, being able to bait quarterbacks, but again, just as importantly, because I know as fans we sometimes think like, oh well, yeah, it's thrown to you, catch it, but like again, showing really good hands. Like this wasn't like thrown to his chest. Like Jerry did have to go make a play on the ball, and tried to make at least some attempt to try to get to the end zone after securing this pick, but it's again, this isn't even a bad ball, and I understand what Bryce Young is trying to do here, but this is just again, this is playing chess. This is understanding, the game a little bit better than a rookie quarterback does, and everything just goes the right way for the Lions here.
Yeah, and I'm sure this is something they talked about throughout the course of the week. Is like, hey, he's gonna assume what he sees pre-snap is gospel. So in this instance, like we talked about it before we got on, Miko, but initially the only deep safety is Tracy, and then at the last second you'll see Kirby bail and he gets back, so it looks like they're in just cover two man. And I'm sure that's what Bryce thought when he saw Jerry down by Ian Thomas. But They were in some version of a cover two shell, and Jerry was able to make the play. Like you said, it's not an easy. This isn't a gimme either, and Jerry's not the tallest of guys, so this is a good play overall. It's just really cool. It's really cool to see him make this play in zone, and I really believe it goes to show like how good this coaching staff is, man, because he did not have that skill set coming out of college. He was a man corner, and that was
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, and like you said earlier, right? Jerry's calling card to this point has been physicality, and sometimes it's been to his benefit, and sometimes it's been to his detriment. But in these last couple weeks, we've seen him really put it together, being able to make plays on the ball, being in the right place, being and being able to make plays when the ball is thrown to him. He's again, and it's corner too. I think that's the other thing too. We have to realize like he may not be a shutdown corner. He's not going to be that type of guy. He's not going to put people on an island. He's not the Darrell Reeveses, the Patrick Surtains, the Sauce Gardners of the world. But when you have a guy that can be physical on the outside, when he can make plays like he is, getting turnovers and still coming up and defending the run really well, you got to be able to give Jerry credit for doing those things.
Absolutely, 100%, Miko. If he can continue to show growth and progress, and in zone concepts, it's all there for Jerry to be a really successful player that could have a long career in this league. Because, like you said, he's physical against the run. He'll come up and pop you. He's fearless. If he could be a little less handsy downfield, that would go a long ways too, just clean things up a little bit. But I also do think he's been victim of a little bit of like some ticky tack ones, like last
for sure.
Against the Panthers. That one was blah. Like they tried something deep, and Anzalone actually had good coverage, and that was not like, I don't think that should have been called. I agree with Jerry there. I thought that was ridiculous.
Yeah, and so again, we giving him a lot of credit again for being able to make this play 2 weeks in a row of him making plays like this, and he's feeling it, right? And I think that's one of the best things that you can have if you're playing corner, is to start to have that confidence that you can go out there and that you can cover everyone and that you can make the plays. Like it's crazy to say this, but like we've talked more about Jerry than we have Cam Sutton, and Cam is probably coming off his worst game of the season as far as receptions given up. But that's how good, and I think it kind of speaks to the confidence that Cam has had up until this point, is that he's had the type of play where he's being able to go out there, handle his business, and he's doing it at such a exceedingly high level that we're not talking about him, because it's just like, oh yeah, that side of the field is taken care of.
Yeah, Cam's been a vet from the jump since he got here. And yeah, you can tell offenses are targeting Jerry, just because they're like, hey, we'll see if we can't get a penalty, a defensive holding, a DPI. And he might have like 7 or 8 either holdings or DPIs through the year already. I'm like, man. So if he can get some of that cleaned up, continue to show growth in zone, everything else is there, man. And I got to think that Dre Bly and Aaron Glenn and the rest of the defensive staff are probably smiling ear to ear this week.
For sure. All right, Morgan. Well, you already know when we do these types of, film breakdowns, we definitely love to highlight the good things that the Lions are doing and being able to showcase to the fans, like, hey, these are how these good moments are happening. But occasionally we like to look at some things and try to highlight, areas where the Lions may have fell asleep at the wheel for a play or two, and probably opened themselves up to being, taken advantage of in certain situations. So we're going to dive into that in just a moment. All right, Morgan. So right here we have a run play that the Panthers kind of had at some point in the game. I can't remember exactly when I pulled this clip, but it's one of the few successful runs that this Panthers team had. And they didn't have a lot of success in this game, obviously, but they came very close to ending this Lions streak of holding teams under 100 yards rushing. Lions were able to keep them to 99 yards, but there were quite a few runs like this in the game where they had the potential to turn into something more disastrous for the Lions.
Yeah, Miko, like you said, it was definitely the first team of this season that had, a little bit of success running the ball against the Lions. 23 carries, 99 yards, 4.3 yards per carry. So pretty good when you look at it that way. And this is just nice execution. It's a gap scheme. They're going to motion in Jonathan Mingo the big Ole Miss receiver. He gets a really good block on Tracy. John Kaminsky isn't able to anchor well, and that double team kind of washes him down the line, like you mentioned earlier. And it creates a pretty big alley. Shout out Alex Anzalone for getting Miles Sanders on the ground, because this could have been a house call if things had gone a little bit more wrong for the Lions.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Miles Sanders was about to find himself one-on-one with Kirby Joseph here, and
Mhm.
I don't know if I would have taken Kirby in this matchup, honestly.
No, Miles is pretty dynamic in the open field. So, uh, yeah. And you mentioned, before we got on, like the Lions have a stacked box here. I believe they have 8 in the box. It's just not who they would prefer in
Yeah.
terms of, defending the run. You got Anzalone, Barnes, McNeil, Romeo, Kaminsky, Hutch, Tracy. Um, Ideally, this is Brian Branch down here in Tracy's spot,
Yep.
especially in this instance, and hopefully it goes a little bit better. Cam Sutton could have jumped down in there, but he probably had that gap over by Hutch, so I don't blame him for not jumping down in the hole. But yeah, overall, this is a good execution from the Panthers. They had a few of these, like you mentioned. The Lions should, work on. I'm sure they're talking about it this week, because this could have been a lot more if it weren't for a really good tackle by Anzalone.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that I wanted to point out with this is, again, the Panthers found a recipe that worked really well for the Lions as well, which is, again, they ask their wide receivers to block. So like you said, Jonathan Mingo coming in here and getting a part of this run scheme, like he comes head up on Tracy Walker and does a good job of holding him and then finishing him and getting him out of the way for Miles Sanders. Um, like you said, I think this is something that the Lions are going to end up talking about, because it's one thing to control the line of scrimmage against most of your opponents, but when if you get opponents that can be creative in the run game, that can execute and be just as sound in their assignments, that's how you get things like this to happen. Also, not having the perfect personnel, like you mentioned, right? Having John Kaminsky. Listen, John Kaminsky does a lot of things very well, but he's not as great of an anchor when you're talking about in the run game as an Isaiah Buggs, as a Benito Jones. And again, you'll find teams that will eventually just wait. They'll bide their time, kind of like how we have another play that you're gonna talk about in a minute, where Ben Johnson shows a really good, patience in being able to set things up, wait until things kind of develop the way you want them to, and then you start to, kind of counterpunch in those areas.
Yeah, if they're, not to look ahead, the Lions have the Bucks this week. It's a big game. The Bucks are what, 3-1. They just had a bye.
3-1. Yeah, three
Three
and
and
one
one.
coming
So
off
they
a
just had a
bye.
bye. So not to look ahead, but if the Lions are looking at themselves as potentially the class of the NFC, along with the Niners and Eagles, both those teams have excellent offensive lines, some dynamic ball carriers, and some creative play callers. So yeah, tighten up. I know they've been
Yeah.
good against the run all year. This is a little bit. They had some sloppy ones here. The long of the day was an 11-yarder from Laviska Shenault. I think we talked about that one before we got on. So
Yeah,
we're
and
not chopping them up too much, but clean it up.
yeah, no. There's no taking to task here, but it is one of those things where it's like, hey, when we're going through tape, when you're going through film, and you're trying to realize, like, okay, exactly what happened here. At the end of the day, the score is the score. That's the most important thing. You start jumping into film and you start nitpicking things, you start realizing, like, okay, maybe they weren't as sound here or there. Um, and that's things that they can clean up. And that's one of the things that you want from a team that's winning, is finding ways to clean things up and being able to find areas where they can take advantage of other teams. Speaking
Yep.
of taking advantage of other teams, the next play that we talk about, that we're going to look at right here, is another good example of that. Again, doing things really well early in the game, so that when you get into these later parts of the game, you still have plays that you can call to catch teams off guard and take advantage of them in those respects as well.
Yeah, so we're going to jump forward here to the fourth quarter. The Lions are trying to salt this one away. I believe it's a little less than 11 minutes left in the fourth quarter. So they got Craig Reynolds in here to give Monty a spell. And this is beautiful for a few reasons. The first reason is that out of this formation and out of this look, they ran a play earlier where they fake this pitch, and Jared Goff turns and whips it to Khalif Raymond, who was in the slot. And they get a nice, it's like a 10-yard chunk, and they get it down to the 1. So stop it here real quick, Miko. So right here, where Jameson Williams is lined up in the slot, they had Khalif there earlier. So Goff essentially fakes the pitch, whips it around, throws it to Khalif Raymond. Panay gets out there. It's a bit of a wide receiver screen, if you will, and Panay gets a good block. But this time they pitch it, and some really good blocking on the action side by Decker and Jonah. But Craig Reynolds shows his vision and his ability to be a veteran back. And notices a cutback lane, and it's really because Frank Ragnow washes 99 way down the line. Panay gets a good backside seal on number 95, Derek Brown. And there is a big old alley here for Craig Reynolds, man. So good job running around 24 and turns it into, I think it was a gain of 17.
And that's also just fresh legs, right? I mean, they ran Monty, so heavily in this game. Craig Reynolds finally got to come in the fourth quarter. You got fresh legs, tired defense. Also is another good, portion to this recipe for this play to kind of really take off to where it does.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like the Lions wear on you for sure. We've seen that now over the course of, several weeks, that these defenses are pretty tired of dealing with Frank Ragnow and Panay Sewell and Taylor Decker and everyone else by the end of the game. They're like, all right, man, let's get out of here. Let's get back to DTW. Let's get on this plane. But yeah, look at this alley right here. Boom.
Yeah, I almost wish it was Jameer, because I feel like that's a house call. Like the way that lane opens up is like someone else with another gear takes that to the house on you.
What's that meme of Dan Campbell? Like Jameer's eyes would be like this.
Yeah, because it's just like that's what you want. That's what you want as an offensive coordinator. That's what you're looking to do as an offensive line, is just be able to create those opportunities for your running backs. And dude, it's such a good time to be a Lions fan. I think that's the easiest way I can say this, right? They're 4-1. They have another good opportunity to push this to 5-1, to beat another team with a winning record. Say what you want about the Buccaneers, they do have a winning record, and that's what you want to do. You want to be able to beat teams that are also winning, and to be able to showcase that you are, a higher caliber team.
Yeah, man. I love that the way Dan Campbell phrases it week in and week out. Like they talk about how they haven't done anything yet, which is true. They've won a lot of games recently. I saw the Lions they've only lost like three games in the last 11 months, which is crazy.
Sounds about right. Yeah.
Because my goodness, that's a wild thing to contemplate at the end of the day. But yeah, just keep taking care of business on a weekly basis, and you start stacking these wins. And the whole goal is if those last couple weeks could not matter for the Lions, that's the goal, right? If they, they're like, all right, we're penciled in at the 2 seed. We can't go up or down, or holy cow, maybe they're in contention for the 1 seed. But that's why you do this. That's why you stack all these wins, as many wins as possible as you can in September, October, November. So December is a little less stressful for you.
Absolutely. All right, guys. So that's going to do it for today's film breakdown, or at least us highlighting some of the top plays that the Lions had in their win over the Panthers. Let us know in the comment section below if there's another play that you guys really loved that we didn't get to make it into today's or this week's top plays. Morgan and I are going to be back later this week to also do our film study of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So we're going to highlight a couple players, a couple things that the Bucs do really well. So definitely stay tuned to the Pride of Detroit YouTube channel for when we drop that film study as well. But outside of that, if you guys are looking for even more breakdowns or film studies from this game, like Morgan said at the top of this video, or at least some point in this video, he does have an article over on prideofdetroit.com where you guys can check out a list of other plays that he highlights and breaks down, and then talks about those a little bit more in depth. So definitely go check those out. Again, like always, that'll be linked in the description. And like always, we appreciate you guys. First of all, thank you guys for helping us get to 10,000. So awesome that you guys were able to help us reach this really important milestone for us. We're on to the next milestone. I won't even say it yet, but like there's a milestone. There's a really big milestone that I want to be able to see us hit. So continue to keep subscribing to the YouTube channel, hit the notification bell, send this channel to a friend, another Lions fan that you know of, and continue to just help us grow this as a community. We really appreciate all the support that you guys give us, both on the YouTube channel, the podcasting space, and on the website. It's all greatly appreciated. But with that said, I'm Miko. He's Morgan. and we will catch you guys in the next video.